Hello and welcome back to Blue Tinted Glasses, and not just Blue Tinted Glasses, but also we are going live on For Fox's Sake TV with Anna Olivia. How you doing, mate?
Very good. Well done for actually getting the name correct. I mess it up myself on my own stream every single time, and the amount of restarts I've had to do with my own stream. So you can tell that Locks is top tier.
Oh
Privileged to
yeah,
be with you.
yeah, mate. Same to you. We obviously we did a live on your channel the other day. It didn't go too well because I had a power cut. So touch wood. Today should be fine. So yeah, I mean, a bit of a last minute stream we decided to do. Obviously, a couple hours ago, I messaged you because we've got 3 days left of the transfer window, and things seem to be as bad as they were 2 weeks ago. To be honest with you, the kind of craziness of a transfer window seems to be taking place right now, mate. I want to start there. Obviously, we'll talk a bit about Tranmere as well. I know the team news has just come out, and that's coming up soon. We will get onto that, but I want to start with transfers. So
Do it.
Well, where do we start, mate? I mean, the last signing we made was Jordan Ayew, just after Oliver Skip. There was a lot of meltdown online with Jordan Ayew as well. I think a lot's been said about him, so we don't really need to go too much into that. I mean, we've spoken about it previously as well, but it seems like we're currently being linked with a goalkeeper in Thomas Kaminski from Luton. A £10 million bid allegedly has been made. We're also very close, apparently, to signing this number 10 from Genk, which is, I'll need to remember his name, Bilal El
Bilal
Khanous,
El Khanous. I'm
which
probably
seems
butchering that
more of a
name.
sign. Well, yeah, I think you're right, mate. Which is more of a signing that we should be making a number 10 in the attacking areas. But let's start with Kaminski. What's going on, Anil? Why are we bidding £10 million for a goalkeeper?
Do you mind if I present my screen? Because I think just to make this even crazier, I've actually got a feeling that the plot may thicken. Because a lot of
Yes.
people think that it's Alan Nixon who's linked us with this player and that he actually might be getting his Kaminskis confused. I'm actually half Polish, believe it or not, and let me tell you, that's a very easy mistake to make, even as someone who is half Polish. But let's take a look at them. I'm going to look at who he's actually linked us with and why I don't think we're being linked with this player, and I'll show you the person I think we actually are being linked with.
Okay.
So
Okay.
Thomas Kaminski, he was the goalkeeper for Luton last season, and he's also played at Blackburn prior to that. So he's got Premier League experience, and we know that Steve Cooper, he loves that, right? Because as Bobby Reid and Jordan Ayew have proved, he values players that have got Premier League experience. However, I would say his Premier League experience is getting relegated with Luton. And I think
Yes.
also, if we look at his stats here, so I've brought up FB Ref and I've got this little plugin that gives me these little charts. You can see that his profile is that he loves to kick it long, loves it, absolutely loves to kick it long. But worryingly, look at his crosses stop percentile. Look at his clean sheet percentage. Although, to be fair, that's not just the keeper. But I would look at his save percentage and goals against. So, whilst this player does have Premier League experience, and perhaps that is something that the club want to have just in case Mads Hermansen gets injured, I do find it weird that we're playing a style which relies upon playing out from the back, and we're going someone who is the anaesthetist of that idea, and it's just about launching it. So who knows? I mean, Locks, if you'd have told me that Jordan Ayew and Bobby Reid were going to turn up at Leicester City just after we won the championship, I would have said you're having a laugh, mate. But that has happened. So who knows? Who knows? But so that is the Kaminski that we are supposedly being linked with. But I hate to say this, English people and foreign names. So what I think we might be linked with is this guy. Now, this guy is Jakub Kaminski, and he's 22 years old. He's Polish, and he plays for Wolfsburg in the Bundesliga. And the reason I want to bring this guy up, so this was Wolfsburg's last game, which they lost, by the way, so that probably would link with us even more likely. But the system that Wolfsburg plays, you can see here, is a 3-4-3, and Kaminski plays here on the left-hand side. And if we go to the average positions, here he is, number 16. Look how high he gets up on the pitch. And I would say to you, knowing the way that we play, what player in our team currently would have a similar average position and way they're being used to this potential player?
Mr. Christiansen.
Exactly. And if today, actually talking about Tranmere, Christiansen isn't playing and Luke Thomas is playing instead. Now, against Tranmere, maybe that's fair enough. So look, I might be right, I might be wrong. But for me, given the fact that this guy's 22 years old, can play that position, can also play as a winger, my feeling is I think that's the actual Kaminsky that we're being linked to. But look, I don't want to put the tin hat on. I am wearing the blue tinted glasses here, I guess, when I'm thinking about this. But as said, I mean, otherwise, we made a joke to each other on WhatsApp earlier. And we basically said, how many goalkeepers do Leicester City need? And the answer is yes. They'll just have all of them. But Iverson's got Premier League experience. Ward has Premier League experience, but, we know he's kind of useless, although he's playing again tonight. Stolarczyk is injured. So I just don't get why we would sign another keeper unless we've completely decided that we're not playing out from the back and we are just going to hoof it. But look, God knows, because to be honest with you, I never got why we signed Danny Ward in the first place all those years ago. He paid 12.5 million for him, by the way. What a terrible signing that was. Surely you could have got someone better for the price.
Well, and Kaminsky cost Luton 2.5 million 2 years ago, and he's 31 or 32.
I hate to say it, but that I can believe about Leicester, given that we've just signed Jordan Ayew because I know obviously you said we don't want to mention it again, but for what it's worth, I don't necessarily have a problem with him as a player. I just think it's A, the fee, and B, that we signed him and Bobby Reid in the same season, which just seems like madness to me. But you know what? Let me just show you this quickly as well, which I think is worthwhile going, even though I've just complained about that. So this is all of the signings that we've made so far. Right, I've taken this from Transfer Market, and it's kind of interesting because if you take two OAPs out of the equation, Oliver Skip is 23, Abdul Fattah is 20, Caleb Okoli is 22, Michael Golding is 18, and he's only on loan, but Buonanotte is 19. So you could say that we have actually signed quite a few young players, and you've mentioned the Genk lad, who we can come to in a moment, but I don't want to kind of keep going all over the place. And then we have signed two kind of golden oldies. So maybe it's not as bad as we think it is. But I do think if we signed this signing, it would be absolute madness, given that we haven't yet signed a striker. And I'm sure you'll talk about that later. But there you go.
Well, just on the topic, obviously, because you've got him up there. So Caleb Okoli, so he came in for 14 million euros earlier in the window. Sidestep, without fast, mate. I mean, recent news in the last 24 hours is that Wout Faes wants to leave Leicester City because he's, number one, not happy about playing at left centre back, and number two, he's surprised that we haven't recruited maybe as well as he would have hoped, and maybe, to be fair to him, as Leicester fans would have hoped. What do you make of this? Because in my opinion, I think it's I don't know. I just find it very bizarre. Like, I find it so weird that you've got Wout Faes, who he's hardly torn up trees at Leicester City since being here. You could argue that Suter was the better centre half in the year we got relegated when he came into the team, and now he's crying because Steve Cooper's playing him at left centre back instead of right centre back. Even though he played at left centre back at times under Enzo Maresca when maybe Doyle was injured and JJ needed a rest or whatever. To me, I don't know if it's just BS, if I'm honest with you. That's the only thing I'm thinking. Is it just paper talk? Or because in my opinion, no one's going to pay. So let's say we paid 15 million for him. We're not going to accept any less than that. We need to replace him if he goes. No one's going to pay surely over 15 million for Wout Faes in the next 3 days. Surely. Am I being dummy? Like, I can't see it.
Well, firstly, I would say I feel it's so left field. I believe it because, as you say, it's just sort of so random. It has also come from the guy who's linking us to the Genk lad. I would also say that last season, I'm sure many of the players would have had offers to go. And I think that the club will have told a lot of them, they're like, look, it's happened. But you know us, we've been competing for a long time. We've won trophies. Some of you have even won trophies with us. So you help us get back into the Premier League. And when we're back, we're going to go again and we're going to go hard. and we've signed this really, we've literally signed Pep's disciple to be the manager. So I think a lot of them might have been on board for that. I think the issue is that at Leicester at the moment, I think there's a real culture of dishonesty. Like they don't tell the fans anything. And they didn't tell Enzo about PSR. And let's be honest with you, that's one of the big reasons why he left. So I could believe that they told Wow that they were going to back the team and they didn't. So that's that one aspect. The left centre back thing is a bit funny, but I guess that like with your career starting to enter your prime, you want to play in your best position. We saw Victor Christensen last season left because he didn't want to get used as this kind of weird LCB stroke role. So that's fair enough. Now, with regards to who would pay the money, let me say 2 words to you. And those 2 words are Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
That could be an out. I do know that one of the Saudi teams almost signed a player called Arthur Tiata, who was the one that looked just like Fass at the Euros. And then it fell through, and I think he's ended up going to Italy. So I could see it. Look, for what it's worth, you know, I actually, in my show at the weekend, I did a tactical analysis on the Fulham game. And although I felt Wow had an overall good game, I think to sum him up, there was a point where we were building from the back. Mads threw the ball to him, and he decided, even though he was 6 yards away from his own goal, that trying to backheel it to Victor Christensen was the best course of action. And it led to a goal opportunity, which luckily Fulham didn't score. So I personally think he was one of the reasons why we went down. I can't blame it all on him. But I mean, I think it's a fact that we had Wesley Fofana. We sold him for a lot of money, and we were looking for a cheaper replacement who we thought we could develop. And, you know, Fofana to Fass, there's levels and then there's levels in between them. But I could see him being angry. But dare I say it, I don't think it would necessarily be that bad for the club if he were to go. I don't think it's worth having players who aren't committed either. I think that's a big problem we had the last time we went down. We clearly had players who knew that they were looking for their next contract move and they weren't going to get it at the club. So I think we were like beaten before we were down. Like, for all as a lot of us are calling like Ayew a clogger, I bet he'll run his ass off. I reckon he just comes across as like a nice guy that likes playing football, and he'll do it until he can't do it anymore. And sometimes effort is better than talent. But anyway, that's my thoughts. Be interesting to see how it develops. But the fact that that's come out already, you know, who would we bring in the time? It'd be interesting to see how Okoli does tonight, because I don't think he looked too good in pre-season. But I suppose, to be fair, he's been thought about for the future. As you say, with 3.5 days left to go of the window. But surely Chelsea can just loan us one of their 10 million players if desperate. So
yeah, maybe Wesley Fofana they loan. Tyler left a comment here. I think he's one of your viewers. It looks like we basically flipped our back 3 from Maresca to Cooper. Justin, Vestergaard, Fass is now Fass, Vestergaard, Justin. Seems petty, but I do kind of get it. I mean, look, maybe I'm naive, mate, but I don't get it. I really don't. You know, I just find it so. If in my head, it's like, if you're more worried about that, you know, if you do not back yourself, to perform in that left centre back role, like it just. Stuff like this really annoys me. Like, and I saw somebody online comparing it to the Christiansen situation last summer, and I don't agree, because then you're asking an out-and-out left back to play centre back, which is that's a bigger difference. Am I? You know what I mean? Am I being harsh?
No, you're not being harsh. You're not being harsh, but I think that is maybe modern football, where it's more about the name of your shirt rather than the club badge on your shirt, which is like the classic thing that people say. I can think of many examples of this. Like, even Mbappe at PSG was getting shirty that, like, when Neymar came in and Messi, he had to change his position, and he's gone to Madrid and they're sort of struggling to make it work because they already had a world-class winger in the same position of Vinicius Junior, who might even win the Ballon d'Or, by the way. Right, and now they've got 2 players that basically want to be in the same position. I'm sure Ancelotti will make it work because he's a top manager. But you do get this. But I mean, no offense, there is a bit of a difference between Kylian, I've scored 4 goals in World Cup finals, including a hat-trick, Mbappe, and, well, I got relegated with Leicester City fast.
Well, it seems like ego. It seems like ego to me, right? Because you look at Wilf, mate, right? Wilf's being asked to play a 6, an 8, a 10. You know, Ricardo last season was playing different positions, and you know, you had Callum Doyle left back, centre back, same with James Justin, and you know, that's what annoys me. It's just like, why don't you just shut up, get your head down, right? Try and put a shift in for the team, And then if you play well and we stay up, you probably get your move next year if you want to. You know what I mean? And I saw people saying, "Oh, he might go on strike." I don't think that's going to happen. Maybe he refuses to play. Actually, no, because the window shuts before the Villa game, doesn't it? So yeah, maybe he refused to play tonight, but he probably wasn't gonna play tonight anyway, was he? Do you want to get the team news up on your screen?
Yeah,
and I'll
absolutely.
be able to put it back on.
Give me a second.
I haven't prepared with a snippet.
No worries.
So, I don't want to do that. I want to do that. There we go. So obviously Danny Ward, mate, back in the team since for the first time since pre-season. Yeah, I mean, and that just adds to the fact that that just shows how many goalkeepers we've got, because I mean you've got Ward and Everson in the squad there. You've got Hermanson, you've got Stolisic, who's injured. Brad Young, is that the guy's name as well?
Yeah,
the younger guy.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So yeah, a back four, if you like, of Ricardo, Okoli, Fass, and Thomas. Fass is playing today. Sorry, mate. Yeah, I got confused there. He is playing tonight on the left. How funny is that?
Well, let's see if he does or not. That'll be very interesting to see if he does or not.
Yeah. Thomas again. I mean, I've been very brutal about Thomas on social media. I just think he's a terrible footballer. I'm not a fan of him at all. Winks and Skip, and Ndidi. So. Is that a number 10 spot for Ndidi, do you think, Anil?
It is, but I know a lot of people hate it. In this game, it might not be so good, but in my analysis show, when Ollie Skip came on, I actually think the team did look better, because you had then... So basically, the reason why we lost the Fulham game is that they were setting this pressing trap for Ndidi. So they had two men on Winks at all time, and they were literally saying, "Go on, Locks, you pass the ball to Ndidi." And as soon as Ndidi received it, they rushed him and they knew they'd get the ball off him. The few times he got out of trouble, he actually did very well on it, but he's just not as good as doing that as other players. Whereas when Ndidi's facing forward and he can just monster the ball, he's actually extremely good. And I think he's in our top 3 or 4 ranked players statistically this season. So the thing is people say Ndidi's not the best on the ball technically. I would agree. People would say he's not the most creative. I would agree. But I would say that you can be creative in the Premier League just by winning a ball back. And a certain Mr. N'Golo Kante perhaps proved this more than anyone else in the history of the Premier League. And I think he can do a job with that. And I think it does help us a lot. I'd even go as far as saying that having him a bit further up the pitch means you can go long with Mads and you've got someone who can receive the ball, which is another option you can do there. So I know that a lot of people are quite rightly saying that sounds like it has about as much creativity as a box of cereal. But, maybe it's Cocoa Pops with a funny little or Lucky Charms, and it is more creative than we thought. So I can see it working in the Premier League, because most games we're not going to have as much possession as the opposition. We just played a 13th place team and they had more of it than us. So, yeah, could be bad, but could be right.
And I mean, going further up the pitch there, so you've got a front three, if you like, of Mavididi, Makatir, and Jordan Ayew. Now, I suppose the question I have there, and we'll find out in half an hour, but is Ayew the winger, or is Mavididi, or is he the striker? Is Mavididi the striker? Because
I think Ayew's the striker.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. And obviously the club have put him at the very top there as well of the graphic. But we did see Mavididi used obviously as a striker in pre-season. But yeah, I mean, I think this might answer a couple of questions with regards to our striker situation, to be honest with you, Anil. Are the club thinking maybe that striker isn't a priority position in the market, do you think, now that they've got Ayew?
I mean, if that's the case, that does not bode well, does it? Look, what I'll say is that he does do a lot of pressing, and that's important. And maybe if you're looking more for a link man than you are for a finisher, there's something to be said there. Because even last season, even though Vardy was our top scorer, really so many other players, Mavididi, Keenan Dewsbury-Hall, and then Fatal and Ndidi even to some extent, you had this really nice setup where it was the whole front five scored goals. In fact, that's something that Arsenal do very well at as well. It's just Man City who are the freaks who've got the Norwegian cyborg up front. And, I kind of feel with Man City, if they had to, the other 4 would score goals as well. But you just don't need to, because they've literally got, the T10 million up front there to bang them in. So maybe there's something to be said there. But yeah, because obviously we're hearing that Tom Cannon may well be going to Sunderland or something like that. And I always think you want someone who knows how to finish. But I think you might be right there, Locks. I think that might be the plan, that AU is going to be doing that, and then we're just looking for people to feed him. I mean, look, to be fair though, who can you sign? I think you have to be realistic there. I'll be honest. I still got a feeling that that Fofana will come in from Chelsea, maybe on a loan. But does he fill you with confidence? It's like Forest were linked with that Santiago Jimenez. Now that looked like a really saucy signing, but they were talking 35 million quid. I don't think we're paying that. Eddie Nketiah, not for me personally. Armando Broja, same, not really that proven.
And he's had a problem with his medical.
Well, that's news to me. But I mean, think about a different way. Just like who could you actually get that's going to be good? I know the one that people did quite like the sound of was Fotis Ioannidis from Panathinaikos, but Greek striker coming to the Premier League in a struggling team that's got to hit the ground running. He could be good. He could also be, but Patson Daka was like, honestly, Lux, when we signed Patson Daka, doing like the analysis, I was like, wow, I congratulate the club. Like if you had to pick one person to be the successor to Vardy, he's fast, he can press, he can hit it like a rocket. He's used to the Red Bull system. He seems like a nice guy. He's selfless. He's going to be the new hero. He just ain't done it, and it says a lot that Vardy was preferred that way. And then even Kelechi Iheanacho, that one I was a little bit less certain of because I don't think he was the same as Vardy at all in terms of his characteristics. But you're thinking, won the title with Man City, won the under-17 player of the year, and you can't be rubbish to do that if you look at the history of people that have done it. Like, surely this is going to be a great signing. And I still think that overall Kelechi had moments, but again, he ended up leaving the club before the GOAT. So I don't know. I mean, unless, I put that to you. If you like, to be fair, you're going to say not Jordan Ayew. If Jordan Ayew is the answer, you probably don't want to know what the question is. But who would you sign up front realistically that we could get?
I think the fan base would be very much, and I know they can't run the club off the thoughts of the fans, because then we'd be probably in a worse mess than we are right now. And the fans wanted Daka when they heard his name, and they wanted Sumari when they heard his name, and they wanted whoever else. I think Fotis, man. I think I get the negative side, the cons that you're putting there, and it could very well end up in a Daka situation. But I suppose you don't really know, do you, until they come and see how they. I mean, I was speaking to Rob Tanner a couple of weeks ago, and he was saying that basically what I just said, that the likes of Daka and Sumari, they were big name sign, not big names as in kind of legends of the game or anything like that, but at the time they were kind of in demand. I mean, West Ham, I think, wanted Daka, and we had to fight for his signature.
Can I give you a little anecdote just quickly, actually?
Yeah.
So I've got a friend who, just so you know, I no longer live in Leicester. I live in London, and I live only 10 minutes away from the Arsenal stadium. I actually have a friend who is working on the analytics and scouting platform for Arsenal. He's called Danny Carbassian. He actually used to play for Arsenal. He was the first American player, but he got injured, so his career was over. So that's what he's moved into. So a few years ago, I was talking to him, and he told me that at the time, Arsenal were looking for a progressive midfielder. And he said to me, the amount of times I heard the words Boubakary Samare, if I had £1 for every time I heard it, I could have funded the entire analytics platform just off that money. That's how high they were up on it. And he said that when the race was won and Leicester got him, they're like, oh my God, they've done it again. They're so good. Like, you know how Brighton these days get all the respect for it. So he said that internally in the game, that was seen as being a great signing. And he was impressed by it. And then a year later, I was like, Danny, I think your platform's terrible. Do you think he's a good player? He goes, well, actually, an anecdote is he told me that apparently things like that, when they go that badly, they actually revisit their algorithm to try and find out why it didn't pick up on that. Like, I think Liverpool had a similar story with Naby Keita, how of all the signings that they've made, the guy who made their scouting department was like, this is the one that all the stats say that the chance of him failing is less than 1%, and yet he failed. Obviously had injuries and stuff like that. So that's an interesting one about him. Daka, I'm sure, would also appear. So that is unfortunate. But I would also go as far as saying that I think the fact that both Daka and Sumare were busts is probably why we got relegated. And I know this season we've signed Buonanotte only on loan, but that's the thing is, what if he'd have come in and looked terrible? Now, of course, because he looked quite good in the first 2 games, you're like, damn, I wish we had the buy clause. But what if he came in and he was another, clogger, as I call him? It wouldn't be so good.
And it's not always just when you bring someone from abroad who's kind of relatively unknown. I mean, do you remember Fernando Torres when he was, one of the best strikers in the world at Liverpool? He goes to Chelsea, and he was absolutely he stuck the place out.
Big time.
It's not always it's hard. I mean, obviously analytics and all of that, and how data driven the sport is now. It gets you to a certain extent, but then there's another bit, isn't there, which is all down to the player's personality, hidden attribute type things. So it's frustrating. Just going back to the team, mate. What you make to the bench? Obviously, there's a couple of names there that stand out for me, like Alves, Popov, even I suppose Nelson. I suppose being on the bench. What do you make to it?
Yeah, given it's Tranmere, I'm surprised we weren't a little bit more experimental, because who cares about this competition this season, honestly, right? Like, even if you were to win it, if you got relegated, what does that mean, right? So you should try it. I mean, to be fair, though, when you're a coach at the start of the season and you're not playing quite as fluently as you want, you might want to try some things. That's why I think it's interesting that you've got Wink, Skip and Ndidi in there. I sort of get that. You're saying, okay, if my plan is I've got to be able to build from the back and I've got to be able to win the ball up high, and that 3 is going to determine if we can do that or not this season. So I'm playing them. I can sort of see that. And then the rest is a little bit less important. I guess Ayew, he's just come in, make sure he gets some minutes and things like that. But yeah, otherwise, for example, I am a bit surprised that, Hamza's not played yet. Cody's not played yet. Alves, I mean, he's obviously the one that everyone wants to play. But I mean, I still think that he's, better off going on loan. I think the one that really surprises me, Locks, is where's Michael Golding? I've been hearing a few rumors about that behind the scenes, about apparently it's just purely a rumor, but the rumor I heard of him is that he actually has not been reporting to training with the under 21s where he's playing for. Now, I don't want to say that's fact or not. It's purely a rumor and it's probably completely made up. But basically, I feel a bit sorry for him, because we're going to see this more and more in football, where essentially you're just an accounting trick, and you as a player, no one cares about you. So you were signed purely so that both clubs could stay within PSR, and really your career goes by the wayside. And then you're going to move somewhere all excited, thinking you're going to be part of the first team. And the manager's like, actually, you're not. And then what do you do? It's going to kill your motivation as a youngin. So
the rumor. Again, it's just a rumor. The rumor is that obviously he might have the hump, that he's not training with the first team, and he's going AWOL for the under 21s.
Yeah, but I tell you what, let's not dwell on that, because there's no facts there, and that is really like my mother's uncle's brother's son's father-in-law told me that he saw Michael Golding at the Chippy instead of practicing, right? But I tell you what, you get the feelers out. You can see if that is or isn't true. But I do find it a bit strange that he's not playing it either, because in the pre-season friendlies, both him and Alves did come on when we played against Shrewsbury, who, maybe Tranmere are better than that, but, you got to get some minutes. I'm assuming, as you say, we've talked about players in, but what about players out? And, I know that Sammy Braybrook's going to Dundee on loan, but I would imagine that, well, I don't know if Nelson will go out on loan, to be honest with you. This fast thing is a spanner in the works. I've also got to say that of all the youngsters, whilst I know there's high expectations on Alves and he could yet do it, the one to me that seems just like the most obvious, he will definitely play for Leicester and be good player, I think, is Ben Nelson. I think he just looks like someone, if you give him experience, don't get me wrong, I'm not necessarily saying he's going to become an England international or something like that, but I can see you having a really solid centre-back for sure. He's already been quite impressive to me. And I think he just needs a bit more confidence and game time, and he'll get it, which is, to be honest with you, why he should go to the Championship. But he looks pretty good to me.
Yeah, I mean, Michael Golding's a weird one, obviously. I mean, even him, maybe he could have gone out on loan. I don't know what the rules are with moving to a club. I'm sure we can just loan them straight out. I don't think there's a rule that stops that. But do you think Steve Cooper might treat this game tonight as kind of like a mid-season friendly? You know, just you get what I mean? Because obviously he had a bit of a problematic pre-season with regards to. I mean, you look at the players there, Ayew, Skip. You know, they weren't about for pre-season. Obviously, Cordova-Reid was, but I don't know. Do you think he's going to take this seriously? Is my point. And my second question to that is, would you take a Carabao Cup win if we get relegated?
I'll answer the second one first. Actually, I wouldn't in this one season, I think. Normally, I actually said that the season we missed out on the Champions League but won the FA Cup, I still think it was the better of the outcomes because you were never going to win the Champions League, but we did win trophy. We'd never won the FA Cup before, and I actually thought we had a decent chance of winning the Europa League, so we stunk the place out in that competition. That said, I've got to say, I've got very fond memories of seeing that Martin O'Neill team beat Tranmere, who we're playing tonight, by the way, with Matt Elliott's double. That's ingrained in me, and that was a lovely day, obviously for the result, but not just that. So, you know, that would be nice to see. But I think these days we're seeing it more and more that, like, if you get cut adrift from the Premier League, I think you're going to get to the stage where you basically can't get back up there and stay there. And it's such a shame that Leicester have regressed probably 10 years in the last 3 years because, you know, it wasn't so long ago that we were the ones that were pushing for the Champions League. And now we're pushing for the championship. That's not the push you want to be making. So that's that aspect. Now, do I think he'll take it seriously? I think he will, but not really caring about the result, as bizarre as that sounds. What I think he will do, and I think to be fair with some of the players that he signed, is he's going to expect like high pressing and get about it. Like I would still say that is still a little bit of maybe a concern from the team. That first half against Spurs, we were way too passive. At least second half, we really got about it. Against Fulham again, they were the better team, but we were a bit better in the second half. But again, throughout the whole game, you know, we never really just got about them and laying in tackles. And that's the kind of thing. It's like if you can't win with talent, you can win with physicality. And it's actually easier to build a team that can win on physicality than it is on talent, right? It's a smarter way of doing it. So, you know, McAteer works his socks off. Ayew works his socks off. Mavididi, he's not lazy. I remember a game against Birmingham City last season where not only did he score goals, but he had the highest amount of tackles and interceptions. Fantastic performance. I actually think playing Ndidi high up the pitch here again, just win it back. So let's see if he does that. But I think that will be the thing that he's looking for. It'd be interesting to see the possession stats today, and turnovers. But I think this will be the first game of the season where it should be like 60, 70% possession to us. Now, whether or not we score from it, because to be fair, the creativity is still not exactly fantastic here. But I think that's what he'll want. We're going to be playing Villa on the weekend. And I mean, that's a very tough game. They finished above Spurs. I think I would rate them a lot better than Spurs personally, even though I'm full of admiration of Spurs. I just think Emery is a proven top-class manager. He's won leagues. He's won European trophies. He's done it in multiple leagues. You know, I swear there's like a sliding doors moment where we sacked Brendan Rodgers and brought in Unai Emery. And I love to think about this sometimes when I go to sleep about how life could be very different, but we don't live in that world, unfortunately.
Interesting fact as well, just before we move on from the team news. Tranmere's goalkeeper tonight, Joe Murphy.
Oh, yeah, my God. Yeah.
He played in the 2000 Cup final for Tranmere. How mental is that? How mad is that? And I was 2 years old. I was
Well,
2.
yeah. Wow.
I was 2. Yeah.
Fair play to him, though. Fair play to him. That is, I mean, there's longevity, and then there's that. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, he's been around the houses. I think he was at Tranmere, West Brom, Sunderland, Coventry, Huddersfield. Now he's back at Tranmere. So there we go. Right, mate. I think you've given me a little bit. You've got a bit of research with you. Let's end because I know kickoff's coming up in 10 minutes. Bilal El Khanous, back to transfers. So this is what, you know, we talk about the striker. Will we sign a striker? Won't we? But this one looks like it is going to be done. Rumor has it that we might be close to an agreement at around £25 million or euros, whichever it is. Talk to me, mate. I mean, you're good with all this, all these stats. So talk to me and tell us all what type of player he is and what he could bring.
No worries. Firstly, though, I've got to give a shout out to someone. So someone on Fox's talk called King Fox. He's a good friend of mine. And at the start of the window, everyone was saying, okay, KDH replacement, who could it be? And everyone's rattling off names. And he was really concise and he came up with like 2 or 3. And he goes, I think this one is one of the top ones we should be targeting, Bilal El Kanous. So when it
Wow.
came up, he looked like, okay, hire him for the scouting department. I've got his stats here, but just before coming to the stats, I think something that's interesting is this. So this is players who've won the Young Player of the Year award in Belgium. And the current winner of that award is Bilal El Kanous. But looking back at some of the previous winners, you've got Axel Witsel, great career, at Atletico Madrid right now. You got Yuri Tillemans, did something kind of important for Leicester City. You've got Leon Bailey. Then you've got a few that I didn't really do so well. Like Wesley went to Aston Villa, didn't do so good. But in recent years, you've got Noah Lang at AC Milan. This Yari Vasarin is a good player, but had like a cruciate ligament, was out for like a year and a half or something. Charles de Ketelaere, who's was at Milan, but then went to Atalanta. He had Vermeeren, who went to Atletico Madrid, but they've actually got rid of him to send him back to Leipzig. So I think that already shows you that these sort of players, more often than not, tend to be pretty good, right? I wouldn't necessarily say that any of these players, maybe with the exception of Tielemans, has really gone quite to the highest level. Like Noah Lang is at Milan, but he's not like he's their star man. Their star man is Rafa Leao. But I mean, he's still got there. I mean, that's still impressive. Vermeer and Atletico Madrid, very impressive. So that's there. But coming on to his actual stats, so what type of player is this? And I think, again, you can see why he would be wanted by the current system. So in terms of creativity, and we've just said that Wilfred Ndidi isn't that, but this guy, look at his progressive passes, his passes attempting, his shot creating actions, his assists. He is in the top category for all of these. So this guy is a creator. He's going to help you create chances. But he's not a lazy player, because on top of that, his tackles is also really high as well. So on paper, that sounds pretty good. Maybe you could say that his interceptions could do more work, but I'm guessing that if he's playing higher up the pitch, he's not in such a position to do that. So I think these numbers look fantastic for a player of his age. He's already got a lot of minutes under. I mean, look at this. Aerials 1 as well is pretty high. That's very useful for a Premier League player as well. So, yeah, look, I would say that that's been a big issue with our team. If you had to ask me who our most creative player so far this season has been, I think it's easily Facundo Buonanotte. So what happens if he gets injured? And if you're relying everything on just one 19-year-old, that doesn't sound great. I mean, I suppose this guy's 20, so now you're relying on a 19-year-old and a 20-year-old. But I suppose between the two, you've got a bit more. But I would say, actually, I'm a bit surprised that if we get this over the line, that we will be able to, because honestly, I'm a bit surprised that another team didn't take a punt. To be fair, I would say that maybe the best advice you could give a player like this is don't jump straight to the top move right away, but go for that kind of middling move. And I think that's always the smarter way of doing it, right? Like I look at like Rasmus Højlund at Man United. It's like, that seems like too big a step when you've only scored 9 goals in Serie A to be the leading marksman for a club like Man United. He certainly looks like a good player, but it's not surprising that he hasn't hit the ground running. Whereas maybe look at Wesley Fofana, comes into Leicester City, slots in seamlessly. He looked amazing when we signed him, and then got his big move thereafter. And I would actually say that for a player like this, that's the best possible thing to do, is go to one of those sort of mid-table Premier League teams. Hopefully we're one of them, because maybe mid-table is being a bit generous, Locks, but show what you can do. The only thing I will say that's a bit bad is he seems to be trying to force through the move, and that is.
I was going to say, how much of a concern is that to you? Because obviously we've had it before. We've had Riyad Mahrez go on a kind of strike. We've seen Fofana go out on an all blown strike, which was a thing that was annoying, obviously, because it was so close to deadline day, like this one is, for their club. What do you make of it? I mean, I've seen some people say stay away from him, but I mean, we need him, don't we? Let's be honest, we need him, and we need him at the club. So, do we just
beggars can't be choosers, Locks? It's like if this was a nightclub and it's closing in half an hour and you're feeling a bit lonely, and this one's still a pretty good looker. I'm very misogynistic here. I apologize to everyone that's listening to the stream. Yeah. I was going to say,
Fofana, I forgot about that. He was on strike at St. Etienne as well, wasn't he?
Yeah. And everyone was laughing, but it's like, guys, come on. I mean, this guy's not that desperate to play for Leicester. think you're getting yourself a bit further ahead. But look, that was my point. I made it a bit earlier in the show with the fast situation. That players aren't really loyal to the club anymore. I think that's a product of social media where right now, your own following can dwarf. Cristiano Ronaldo's got more followers, I think, than all of the Premier League teams put together. It's insane. So, that's why people play for their own jersey, not for the club that they're playing for. Yes, I'm sure it'd be a bit salty if he goes, but I don't think if you could really get a talent like this, I think you've got to go for it. I want to manage expectations a little bit. I'm giving him the big up, but to expect him to slot into the team immediately and start providing is still probably being a bit ambitious. He could do it, don't get me wrong, but he's probably going to need a little bit of teasing in. That said, we are signing him in from Genk, and we signed Wilfred Ndidi from Genk. And Ndidi, to be fair to him, that season we were in big trouble. We looked terrible. Mendy got injured early on, right? We were playing a midfield two of Andy King and Daniel Amate, which went about as well as that sounds. And then Wilfred Ndidi came in a January transfer window, and then him and Shakespeare, we got to the quarterfinals of the Champions League, and we stayed up. And he did hit the ground running right away. So there's definitely precedent for it. I agree with that comment now. I think the thing with a signing like this is even if he started off badly, I'd be surprised if he didn't make your money back. But I did think that about both Daka and Simare. Daka also knew
and
English.
a sell-on clause for Bilal as well.
Yeah, but that's not that uncommon, to be honest with you. I think, like, even say Harry Maguire, who he sold for 80 million, I'm pretty sure Hull had a 20% fee. And that's actually one of the reasons why. So people think, for example, say with Wesley Fofana, I wouldn't be surprised if actually the Fofana and Maguire deals netted us around the same amount of money net, if that makes sense. Because I think Zanetti and Olza had their sell-on clause, but theirs maybe wasn't as big as the whole one. So it all evens out in the end of it. That's fair enough. I mean, I've actually seen quite a few of the coaches lower down the league saying that they think that the sell-on clause is actually great for football, and that's the way that it should be. And I think even the top teams kind of respect it because it feels fair. Like it's one of the few fair things in football that like actually the club who took the effort to develop that player in the first place. I don't know if you know this. Did you know that Newcastle have a sell-on with Ivan Toney because he was originally Newcastle? Yeah.
Wow.
So they sold him to Peterborough, and Peterborough couldn't afford the full fee, so they did a sell-on fee with Newcastle. So they're probably hoping that Chelsea sign him, which is the latest rumor. But hey, this is a Leicester show, not a Chelsea show.
Well, and a very small village football club in Ghana have had a payout from the Fatawi deal. I don't know if you knew
that's
that.
amazing, though, isn't it? I think
like
that's
£1 million.
Great.
£1 million, I think it was, going to some random team in Ghana. It's I agree. I think Norwich got a bit of a sum as well from the Madison deal.
Of course they would have. Yeah, of course they would have.
I think that was on the profit maybe. So,
yeah.
All right. Well, that's brought us to the end, mate. Not as ranty as I thought it was going to be. I quickly moved on from the Kaminsky stuff. I think you actually helped pacify that with the potential of maybe just wrong identity.
Wait till it is the goalkeeper, and then we will be on it. But I just want to come back quickly before you end it because we talked a little bit about the striker, but for me, that is still the elephant in the room. It's like Vardy is the GOAT, but I mean, you can't rely on the 37-year-old in the Premier League. And then Jordan Ayew is just not a proven goal scorer. And then we're sending Cannon out on loan, and Daka might not be back until next year. And even if he comes back, he's not a proven Premier League scorer either. I will say that I think in recent seasons, it's been shown that actually, although you have got to have not a terrible defence, so Sheffield United conceded over 100 goals, but actually there's been plenty of teams that have had quite a bad goals against column, but because they scored goals, they stayed up. And that worries me. Like Burnley last season, I think they only scored 32 goals. So, I mean, at least for us, at least we've averaged a goal a game so far. But even against Fulham, if we didn't score off that corner, were we going to score?
What do you think?
Well, to be fair, we might be signing a creative player here to help us get the ball upfield. But as I said, I mean, I'm struggling though to who would you actually bring in? And that is an issue. What you're really looking for, I think, is you are looking for someone that you can loan, in my opinion, because
that's it. I think that's the only option, mate. Yeah. No, I agree with you. I agree completely. I'm sorry. I was sidetracked there because I've just seen a tweet a tweet saying, or a photo, sorry, of Nathan Opoku at the King Power Stadium. Do you remember Nathan Opoku?
I do. I do. He's
From
yeah,
Leuven.
yeah. And what's he doing? Just
So,
watching though. I don't think he's ever going to play, is he?
well, he's watching, but he had a really bad injury, didn't he? He broke his leg or did his ACL or something about
I
a
did
year
not know
ago.
that. Okay.
Yeah, so because I think we bought him, didn't we? And then we sent him to
Yeah.
Leuven, but now he's at the King Power. So maybe he's the planner coming back from an ACL. Nathan Opoku to be our goal scorer. I highly doubt it, but yeah. All right then. Well, thanks to the people who have been leaving comments. Much appreciated. I think most of them are over on your side, Anil. So yeah, we appreciate that. Let us know in the comments as well. Even if you're watching it back, if you enjoyed this type of stream. Obviously, it's been streamed to both our channels. So if you're watching on my channel, go over to For Fox's Sake and subscribe. And if you're watching on For Fox's Sake, come over to my channel and hit the subscribe button. Anything you want to say, Anil, before we shut down the stream?
Yes, I want to say I've said this before, but Lox, you're one of my favorite people in the space. I think you're doing great work with Leicester. So you've just started your own channel this season. I'm looking forward, hopefully, to collaborating with you some more in the future. But you've got them people skills. I think if you're in Football Manager, your man management skills would be very high on the Venn diagrams. So I look forward to seeing more of your content going forwards. And hopefully we get to do this again sometime.
Yeah, I'm really glad that Anil joined me because I come with the hot-headed sometimes, and I need someone like Anil to just calm me down a little bit, which is always good. Because otherwise, I'd have been ranting for the last hour, basically. So yeah, definitely. But all right, well, thanks to everyone for watching. Like I said, thanks for commenting and leave a comment if you want to see more of this, and hit the like button as well on both channels because it helps the algorithm, of course, as people know. So cheers all, and kickoff's just started. The match just started, so you can check that out and see if we lose to Tranmere at the Leicester. See you in a bit, Anil. Cheers, mate. Thank you.
Bye-bye.